And the magic machine tells me I'm live. I actually apologize. I actually started kind of like mid belch. I apologize. And we say happy Valentine's Day to all who celebrate. Valentine's Day is one of those things. Whether you're involved in a romantic relationship or not involved in a romantic relationship, Valentine's Day is one of those holidays. Who gives a damn? You know what I mean? Like honestly, like forget about it. But if you celebrate, you celebrate. Happy Valentine's Day. If you don't, hey, happy Love Stinks Day to you. Honestly, forget about it. You know what I mean? Who needs it? Who needs the chocolate causes diabetes? Forget it. Don't even worry about it. Jilly Beans, first in the live chat, gold medal onto the silver medal onto Golden Coin 100. Hey, you're covering the gamut. Just think about it that way. Rugged Source with a good old fashioned elbow cuff, getting themselves a bronze. Mario Heat, are we LARPing yet? It's not a LARP. It's not a LARP. It's a meta RPG. I can understand the confusion and I won't get upset. Not this time. Whereas a LARP, you suspend reality and you and your friends consensually render yourselves like onto the tabletop and take this segment of reality and make it someplace else. A live action role playing game. The what we're doing here, super space program, time travel technology, meta RPG, it is a meta RPG. You know, it's not called the meta RPG. It is a meta RPG in that we are not going or changing anything. We are gamifying our reality. We are playing here. It's understandable if it's not understandable at first. But what we're actually going to try and do here today, and I'm actually going to shrink the live chat because what I want to do today, not to offend anyone, and I love everybody, and I love everybody, is because I want to see if I can do something a little bit focused today. And what I want to do, actually, that we're talking about that meta RPG stuff. Like, let me get this comment off the thing, not this, is because what I actually want to do is kind of strip things down and take one aspect of what we've been doing and really kind of simplify it and bring it out by itself, and that is this notion of taking the generating spells from, we're going to keep it really simple and not talk about it generating spells from anywhere, like from movies and books and TVs. We're just going to talk about generating spells from movies. And people might come in from the title and be like, wait, we're going to be talking about fighting fantasy game books. We're going to get there as quickly as I can get there. Hold on, hold on, hold on. What I'm going to be showing you today, if you're a fighting fantasy game book fan, number one, quickly, I'm going to show you fighting fantasy game books. I'm going to show you a quick conversion, how you can take fighting fantasy game book characters and get them from fighting fantasy game books to classic fighting fantasy game books to classic, what's known as, they're printed by Fabled Lands, but the original Golden Dragon game books, the early, what became the Fabled Land series, the original Golden Dragon series. Very easy to convert these characters back and forth. So I'm going to show you that real quick as well, to give you some substance. So what we're going to try to do is here give some substance to the actual solo role players and the actual fighting fantasy people, to try and see if we can get some people to dip their toe in the water. So we're going to take the spell generating from movies process away from all the esoteric time travel aspects of the meta RPG, all the esoteric aspects of spell casting, and that you can use them in your real life, or you can use them as spells in the game, or you can use them as spells in D&D, or you can also use them as spells in Fighting Fantasy. Forget about all the esoteric notions of my meta RPG or self-hypnosis through time travel or time travel through self-hypnosis. You don't need to worry about any of that stuff until I try to get you to join my cult. No, kids, I would never do that to you. Remember the satanic panic. It's a lie, right? Come on. Perfectly safe here with me. No, we're going to simplify the things and just talk about basically how by watching a movie and doing this spell generating process, I'm going to try and simplify that as easily as possible using two examples, a movie from 2013 and a movie from 2003. We'll go through the brief list of spells that I generated from both of these dinky, stupid, jerky movies that you don't need to have seen to understand how I generated spells from them or how it works. And then I'm going to show you how I use them in the simple character generating process of, fighting fantasy characters who just have three stats. And we're going to be using fighting fantasy characters because of their simplified nature of having just these three stats, and also because if you wanted to get involved in solo gameplay, and if you wanted to get involved in this sort of adding these narrative elements and experimenting with busting out from just rules as written and busting that away from being ruled by the mechanics of the dice and trying to, really role play and really play and get out there and try and experience something. Okay. But, not judging how anybody else plays, how anybody else, does things. Let's start simply by doing things simply one at a time. And I'm going to be with you just for a brief period of time, and that's going to actually help to focus things. I think it makes sense if we briefly review that we're going to be working with, different fighting fantasy game books, generally follow the same parameters. Some of the science fiction ones, like Starship Traveler, will get out there. Starship Traveler is a particularly interesting example because its rule set is very abstracted from the standard ones, but 99% of them kind of follow the same kind of basic pattern. You have three stats: luck, skill, and stamina. And they're very easy to understand. Two of the stats are generated the exact same way. One stat is generated another way. Combat is a very simple process. And there's basically this one other extra dynamic of using the luck stat to kind of influence things one way or the other. But for the most part, and the thing that I'm going to show you today is going to basically be a way of showing you how you can use through this process of watching these movies and generating spells, and then using that spell process in the formulating of these fighting fantasy characters, which is these simple stats, that can be a form of role play itself. Just picking the spells to use as the abilities, and I'll explain how this works. Even not playing through the book, even just generating the character, thinking about how these different spells influence these different aspects of the character's personality or makeup, itself, builds narrative, can develop a kind of relationship with you and the kind of player character or the persona or avatar you're working with, and can lead to something. I argue that that's what I've experienced. Your mileage may vary. And certainly a lot of what I'm talking about as far as the use of the generating of these skills, and then these spells, and the using of these spells as kind of, adjuncts or add-ons to the standard ability stats of these, characters in this fighting fantasy system. If you're an experienced role player, I think you'll have an easy time if you can understand what I'm explaining in regards to how that process works with, adding these narrative elements of these spells to the abilities. How if you can understand how I'm demonstrating that here in regards to this very simplified system of fighting fantasy, that maybe you'll have an easy time extrapolating that up to, a more robust system like Dungeons and Dragons, which I hear is the most popular fantasy game, role playing game in the world. That's my understanding. You know what I mean? But hey, so let's start at the simplest. Let me do this. How am I doing so far, guys? I also say hello to Malta 2000 XXL. There you go. There you go. Even my shirt has a personality. It's incredible. It can always be more meta. More Paul Masson. There you go. There you go. We say hello to Tim Frey. There you go. There you go. We say a little spooky. There you go. Multiple. Okay, there you go. Okay, fantastic. So let's see if I can keep this going. Okay. Was that water? Okay. So I've gone through the rules of creating a character in fighting fantasy, and I actually kind of simplified them down even smaller. I'll go through them. If you have absolutely no experience with role playing games at all, this may be more confusing. If you have experience, this will be less so. If you speak English, the words I'm speaking right now will be comprehensible to you. If you have no understanding of the English language, it is more likely than not that you're not understanding with complete clarity the things that I'm saying to you. Also, if you're blind, you're not seeing me right now. It's want to make sure you knew that. You know what I mean? I'd hate to, and I start, and I don't have dice. Now I'm gonna freak out. Okay, hold on. Nice try. Not on Valentine's Day, homie. Not on Valentine's Day. Okay. Hold on 1 second. I didn't even register on the Richter scale, but I just wanted to make sure. I want to be gonna get a false copyright strike by King Cobra JFS. Good sir, it was wet, but how dare you say it was juicy? I know my lane. Excuse, man. Okay, here we go. And no D6. Can you believe I got this is actually a D3. But are you kidding me? Are you kidding me, sir? Well, now I'm going to go ballistic. No, I'm not going to go ballistic. This is incredible. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? This is incredible. Like I bet you have like a D30 in this place, in this joint. I don't even need to, you know what? I don't even need to roll the dice because I've got friggin' I've got the stats already written for the people. Thank you. Excuse me. Sorry. I apologize. So we have three basics. We have only three stats in basic fighting fantasy game books: skill, stamina, and luck. Your skill is a 1d6. That's a standard six-sided die plus six. That is, you'd roll a six-sided die and you'd add a six to it. That means you'd have a score. All these characters will have a skill score between 7 and 12. Everybody wants a 12 in fighting fantasy and skill, but you know what I mean? Not everyone's going to be so lucky. Your stamina, which is basically your health or your hit points, you know, these are the hit points that are going to get reduced if it go down to 0. That's you. Finito. That's 2d6 plus 12, right? So that's going to give you a score between 14 and 24. Luck is exactly like skill, but it's used and done differently. Unlike skill, which is basically your one static stat, luck is going to vacillate. It's going to be used over time. It's going to range between 7 and 12 because it's generated the same way as the skill stat. It's a 1d6 plus 6. Okay? And here are the rules for fighting in Trial of Champions, which we're going to use as our example fighting fantasy book. You roll 2d6 when you're attacking an enemy, and you add your skill score. That's your attack strength. You do the same for the enemy. You roll 2d6, and the book would provide you with their skill score. The greater number would win, and the loser would suffer 2, a loss of 2 points to their stamina. You know, if in combat you could use your luck. You know, we mentioned that you have a luck stat. You test your luck during combat. You roll 2d6. If it is equal to or less than your current luck score, and your luck score goes down because every time you use luck, either as a result of some sort of encounter in the book or in combat, every time you use luck, whether your use of luck is successful or unsuccessful, you take 1 point off of luck, and luck replenishes over time under certain rules or under certain spells or something. You roll 2d6. If you get equal to or less than your current luck, it's a roll under system. You pass, you're lucky. If you roll over, you're unlucky, it's a failure. And after every test, like I said, you take 1 away from your luck. In battle, if you get hit, right? So you got hit, you lost the contest, so you're about to suffer two strikes against your stamina. You don't want that. You can test your luck. That means you can try to roll under your 2d6 to roll under your luck. If you are lucky and you roll under, instead of getting the -2, you would hits to your stamina, you would only suffer a -1 hit to your stamina. You'd save yourself a hit point. However, if you flub that luck run, that attempt to save yourself, you actually suffer a penalty. You lose 3 points instead of 2. So you run a risk. Okay? If you're the victor in the battle and you're hitting the guy and you actually score a hit and you want to press your luck to see if you can actually, strike that killing blow, make it hurt a little bit more, you can press your luck. And if you're successful, you can do double damage, -4 instead of just -2. If you flub the luck, you did worse, and he only loses 1 point of damage instead of 2. Very, very simple system, and it can be altered with advanced fighting fantasy, other RPGs, whatever. But that's the simplest system. And the point is this: is all I want to do is show you the basics of the skills and how they work, the basics of the stats and what the stats are, and show you this little metaphor I want to give you. Let's think of these stats in 3 ways. Skill. It's what you can do. It's you interacting with the world. It's your body moving things around. It's your, you doing things. Fighting with a sword, moving things around, doing things. Skill. Stamina, that's your body. That's your persona. That's your person. Things that happen to your stamina are happening to you. And your luck, now look, your luck is the thing, that extra special something that you seem to have that you can use to influence the world, right? Press your luck. And even the word luck, it's that ineffable something. And the reason why I'm going through that sort of metaphor of using these stats or how we think about these stats is because when we go into this thing about the meta RPG and the use of these spells and gathering these spells from these movies, is because what I'm going to be doing is we're going to be taking narrative elements of movies, little tropes, little things, little concepts, little snips of dialogue, and we're going to be adding them to these stats, making them the essence of the stat. It's not going to change the mechanics of the stat. The stat is going to be generated the exact same way, and it's, if you play through the game book, it's going to operate the exact same way. But the only thing it's going to do is it's going to draw you, and it's going to key you into some essential energy from that movie that you saw, some kind of thing, some sort of scene, setting, some place, some aspect, some sort of space warriors battling zombies in midnight movie madness. You put a stamina, you put the line, some wacky, thing from associated with some crazy guy in a movie onto the guy's stamina. All of a sudden, when you see that stamina stat, you think a little bit of that person, and all of a sudden, the character's persona starts to take shape. The problem with games like Fighting Fantasy is with just 3 stats that vary just between 7 and 12, 1 stat that goes between 14 and 24, 2 stats that go between 7 and 12, is while there's going to be X amount of mathematical variation that will happen between this generated character and that generated character. And there's a certain amount of frisson that's going to be generated by naming this character, Sir Loincloth, the mighty of the barbarian horde, and this one, Helga, the mistress of mighty misunderstanding or whatever. What I'm going to try and show you will hopefully show you how you can imbue these people with even more narrative flair and energy, and kind of also start the road towards allowing yourself to say, hey, I'm gonna, even though the rules of fighting fantasy don't necessarily include this special ability or this special stat or this special skill, based on this simple narrative twist that I've added in, I'm going to allow it, or I'm going to put it in there. I'm going to start this character on a generation, or moving towards a system that might not even be this system, might start evolving, moving somewhere else. There you go. It took losing my eyes for me to see. There you go. We got Tim Frey. Golden Coin 100. So in essence, one can stay alive even if they don't know how to play. Oh, absolutely. No. Listen. So there's many levels of playing. You know what I mean? Remember, you can play. And this Golden Coin 100's question, brings us back into the wider meta RPG aspect of it. In playing, in doing the time traveling, one travels back to various times. A time traveler may be into sea shanties. Another time traveler is into role playing games. Another time traveler is into chess. People are into various things. Just because I'm into this particular aspect, and therefore I'm kind of fixated on this aspect of it, doesn't mean that other people necessarily will be so drawn to the aspects of it. Also, it's like the degree to which a person engages with the role playing. It's like I said, it's like once the character is generated using the skill, stamina, and luck, there's nothing saying that character needs to then go into Trial of Champions and fight in a game book setting. That person can be assigned in your you know 2003 or 1987 headspace, or whatever the case may be, depending on the fighting fantasy book you have, and what's going on. Any number of perfunctory workaday assignments, or just like sit there on yourself, or just like write the book, or just use them as a bookmark. It doesn't matter. It's like it doesn't take up that much space. But we're getting ahead of ourselves, and we might be running the risk of not doing what we said we do, which is leaving the kind of some of the meta RPG aspects out of it, and just kind of trying simplifying it to how you generate the spells, and how those spells can be used in the generating of one of these fighting fantasy characters. So if I've shown you the fighting fantasy character rules as far as what the ability stats are, let me tell you a little bit about the generating of spells, and then show you two examples of generating spells of movies that I generated spells for, that I also generated characters for. And hopefully by showing you those two, we will have whatchamacallit, showing you how it works. And therefore, it'll be awesome, or we'll achieve something. Also, before we do that, the conversion, I talked about, the fighting fantasy characters being converted to Golden Dragon books. In Golden Dragon books, they do the combat differently. They don't have the combat being resolved by any sort of stat. They resolve the combat just, through a die roll independently. So they don't have a skill stat that is resolved by any sort of combat skill. They have an agility stat, a size stat, and a vigor stat. The vigor is roll 2 dice and then add 20. That's basically the equivalent of stamina, except instead of adding 24, they add 20 instead of they had 20 instead of 12. So your guy from Fighting Fantasy comes in basically at kind of like an 8-point disadvantage. So all you need to do if you want to convert from Fighting Fantasy to Golden Dragon is just make sure to add 8 points to your character's stamina, and then you're bringing them up to standard because it's from the plus. It's from the added thing, so you're not messing with your die roll. You're not really affecting the thing that's left to chance. The size stat, you could just take your luck stat and alternate it for your size score. It's basically an equivalent, though it's used differently. It's really basically the same kind of stat, but they roll one die and add three in the Golden Dragon books. So you're basically, when you come in from Fighting Fantasy, you'd be coming in at a 3 point advantage because you roll one die and add six. So all you need to do for that and for the agility, because it's the agility is the same equivalent of skill. You roll one die and add three. So those are the same as basically as luck. Is this that you could just alternate? You could just take luck from Fighting Fantasy and put it into Psi, and you could take skill from Fighting Fantasy and put it in place of agility. And all you need to do is, if you want to nerf your guy, make sure he's not extra from Fighting Fantasy, is you take off 3 points to bring him or her up to or down to scale. However, if you want to make sure that they come in cool, don't do that. And then hey, right? And likewise, you just do it in reverse. If you want to do Golden Dragon to Fighting Fantasy, you just make sure when you bring your Golden Dragon guys over, you give them the extra 3 points. You take their size score, put it over into their luck, but add 3 points. You take their skill score, put it over into agility, but add 3 points. And then I think, what was it? You roll 2 dice that add. Oh, and then take off 4 points. Oh, no, add. I think, no. Yeah, you'd subtract it there for Golden Dragon to these guys to Final Fantasy. You can subtract the extra stamina or leave the extra stamina. So there you go. I'm showing you conversion things. Look at me. I'm like practical. I'm like pragmatic. So now let me ruin that by showing you this wackadoo spell thing. So there's a movie called Hellbilly. It is trash, but it's from 2003. But this goes to show you how long this retro bullshit's been going on, because it's from 2003, but it's all about trying to be like a movie from the 80s. Like, it's basically trying to be like an homage to like B movie, like rental VHS rental things, like it does, like when it starts, like, but look, here are the spells. So when you're watching these movies, how you generate spells is you watch a movie or a TV show, and you you're watching the movie, and every time something happens that you think is like a great visual cue, or someone says a line of dialogue that's just like so catchy it's unbelievable, or something like just triggers you, like it just is like just so cool, or you see something that is like a trope, like see a trope, write it down, like anything that you think like just is like sticks out to you, write it down. Okay, and then you take that, and then those are your spells. So here's an example. So for Hellbilly 2003, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Not that many. So let me show you what I had. Faux HS. Faux HS. That was like VHS, but it's faux, like a faux hawk, like FAUX, like faux, like fake. Because I had started with the fake VHS warning, like don't duplicate this, but I saw it on a streaming service, and it's from 2008. It was like never on video. Like it's like, so it's faux HS, right? So that sort of thing. You see like a fake thing to make it vintage. So I wrote that down as faux HS. That's a spell. Then here was one, 2083, because it's from 2003, but it's trying to be 1983. So 2083. There's another one. And I wrote this 20-year-old faux vintage synthwave, because the soundtrack was from 2003, but it was like the synthesizer music that was supposed to be the synthesizer music from 1983, but I'm here in 2023 listening to it. So I'm listening to music from 20 years ago that's trying to sound like music from 20 years before that. It was just, so I wrote that down. 20-year-old faux vintage synthwave. And then I wrote down murder at makeout point, because there are these people. It's ridiculous. Like two like 35-year-old actors like pretending to be high school teenagers, like making out like in a Suzuki Sidekick. I have no idea how they got this thing, and they're like making it like during the day and like outside like a barn. It's like supposed to be like obviously like, make that point, and they have like the world's worst like psycho like Fred, like not like Jason Voorhees type of guy coming after them. And so I call it like murder at makeout point because it's a classic trope. So murder at makeout point was one. And then I wrote the man behind the mask. That was when the guy came out, like he was like the Jason Voorhees guy, like this like terrible mask. So I wrote the man behind the mask, and I used that for our guys' stamina skills. So you'll see how it works. Then I wrote down chess skills because at some point there are these two guys, like these like country bumpkins, and they're hanging out like by a lake. And like all of a sudden out of nowhere, like they whip out like a chess set. And like I don't even know if like they have like the correct number of pieces. Like it's bizarre. They all of a sudden start like acting like they're playing chess. I feel like the setup is like one of them is supposed to be like I guess like an ex commando or something. Like I don't know what the hell the deal is. They start playing chess, and then all of a sudden the psycho comes out. So I wrote down chess skills. That's good. I wrote down chess skills when they were playing chess. I wrote that down. Chess skills. That's a spell. And then I wrote down game disruption because out of nowhere, when they're playing chess, all of a sudden the Jason Voorhees guy comes out. They're literally like one guy's here, one guy's here. They're playing chess. And then all of a sudden, the Jason Voorhees like guy comes out into the creek, like between them, like ah, and like smacks his like machete down like on the chess like board. And they're like ah. So I'm like game disruption. Yeah, that's like a spell. Then I wrote no one is exempt because like I think like he kills a kid. It was nuts. And then I wrote variations on a theme. Because they kept on like ripping off like Psycho, like he had his like he was dancing around like his mom's skeleton or something. And then I wrote Sean for the win. I wrote down, oh yeah, I got to cross that off. I wrote Sean for the win because he had the Charlie McCarthy, like the ventriloquist dummy, like King Cobra JFS has. So when I saw that he had that, I wrote down there, and you're gonna see why I'm crossing it off because I use that for the luck stat. Then Killer Nun, because they have like a nun stripper, so there was like a Killer Nun, I wrote that. And then I Dismember Mama because he was dancing around with his mother's skeleton. So you see that you just like write down the silly little things you see, and when I do the other movie Shark Zone, if I have time, I don't think I have time because I have to leave right now. I'll only be able to do this one. You write those things down. So here's how I generated the stats. So you remember there was one skill, there was a stat called skill that was 1d6 plus 6. But here I took the spell chess skills and I put that in. So here we're generating a character for this movie, Hellbilly from 2003. And we're able to use the fighting fantasy book because it's from 2003, even though the original book was published in 1987. This book was reprinted in 2003. So we can use it for our time experiments. And if you're just a fighting fantasy guy, don't worry about the time travel stuff. So we use chess skills as his skill. Like that's why he's like good at being able to do things because he's got chess skills. Even though I named him Casper Wrought of Hellbilly because he comes from the Hellbilly. And I wrote him Casper because I named him Casper because we're going to see I use Sean for the win as the luck spell. That's like his spirit guide is like the Sean is like the Charlie McCarthy dummy. You'll see. So chess skills is his skill, but he didn't have like that good a score. So he is 1d6 plus 6. So he rolled a 2. So his skill is only an 8. But then I use it as a narrative hook. Like it's like he's not a good fighter. Like it's like why is he fighting? It's like there's a problem here. It was like he's on the wrong assignment. Because he only has a fighting skill of 8, but that's because he's good at chess. Like he's he's not supposed to be like fighting and jumping over shit. It's like he's good at things, but it's like it's chess. Like and he's not even that good at that. And then the man behind the mask, I use that as his stamina because the whole thing is you use these spells and then like just like a Jason Voorhees, the guy in Hellbilly, he's like, you kill him and he keeps on coming back. So you put that as the guy's stamina so that like it gives him like, maybe he'll come back if he gets killed. But he did this excellent roll for stamina. He's got a 22, and 22 is my magic number. So he has this 8 for skills, and 8 is magic number for me too. So even though he's got a lame skill number, it's still a cool number. Anyway, whatever. So he's got an awesome stamina skill, a stat 22. So the body of the man himself, and then his luck is Sean for the win. I use that Sean sighting, because that's Sean is the name of King Cobra JFS's Charlie McCarthy dummy. So I wrote Sean for the win when I saw it. So that, because it was lucky, fine. So it's Sean for the win. That's his luck. And he rolled 6. He rolled a 4, so that's good. So he got a 10. So I wrote down a spirit guide from behind and beyond, and as inscrutable as the man he seems to want to protect. As a fighting fantasy player character, Casper's stamina and luck diminish and replenish as per standard rules of that system, and taxing as per use as to luck. But then I was like, but then it's good, because even using the character, like using that thing Sean for the win for his luck, all of a sudden, because Sean, like the ventriloquist dummy, is kind of like a cat, like kind of like a thing you can think of as having personality. All of a sudden, when I generated that character, I started thinking of like that luck thing as being kind of like a conscience, and like almost like a Jiminy Cricket character. Like not only does it his luck stat, but it'll also like help him guide him. And I immediately started developing a backstory that was like because Sean is King Cobra JFS's ventriloquist dummy, and I named it this guy Casper, and King Cobra lives in Casper, Wyoming, and obviously because of all the ramifications of certain people living in less than ideal circumstances out in other regions of the United States, whatever. So it's just this notion of like, why is this character been generated there? Because he's in my mental brain. I got King Cobra JFS on the brain. I watch enough King Cobra JFS, but for the fact that I watched King Cobra JFS, I wouldn't have made the association between that ventriloquist dummy and Sean. Right, I would have named that someone else, or would have just named Dumb Dummy or something else. But because it was Sean, that led me to name the character Casper. Because I named the character Casper, all of a sudden now he's kind of like this lovable loser, right? And now Sean's involved, right? So because Sean's like his luck stat, all of a sudden now I've like Sean kind of like, now I'm imagining this like ventriloquist dummy that I don't name the ventriloquist dummy that's guiding this character Casper, and I gotta go because I'm behind the thing anyway. Is like I've got this whole like kind of narrative like building up, like where it's like he's got this like he cares about the kid, like it's gonna he has like there's like a council of like these people that are like in charge of like helping these guys get through these mazes and stuff, and like maybe he's supposed to be like a little bit more like hands offish or like impersonal, or like maybe they've gone rogue, like maybe the reason that like this character like Casper is like, even though he's got like these chess skills, like the reason he's like in some sort of dungeon is because maybe like the and I call him Mr. Peanut for some reason, like the conscious character, like the conscience, the luck guy, the Charlie, I'll just call him this the ventriloquist guy is helping him, is because like maybe like something happened, like a training, like he knew that something was going, like they were like gonna like ice him or something, or like they knew that there was something like fucked up was gonna happen, so he was like, we're going off grid, like, or something, like blew like a hatch, like maybe like Morpheus was like, we're getting out of here, like, or did something, like, and they're like, fuck it, like, or they're on the run or some shit, I don't know, but it's like that. So if you're into that, that's cool. The Egyptian Tarot is from 2003. It's a pip deck, so if it gives me a wild card that I can't read, it's going to give me a wild card that I can't read, and I am 6 minutes late as it is, and it's Valentine's Day, and I've got the devil. So don't let the devil tempt you. Don't let the devil tempt you to do good. Don't let the devil tempt you to do bad. What an odd thing to say, but it's true. The path to hell is paved with good intentions, because the path to hell is paved with intentions. Be careful of our intentions. Think before you act, and think about what you're trying to do and what you're trying to achieve. What we're trying to do here is we're not just trying to waste our time. We're not just trying to game. We're trying to multitask with ease, and we're trying to live a multifaceted existence, the purpose of which is not just to entertain, but the purpose of which is also to handle our shit and figure it out. But that's a tall order, and that generates a lot of stuff. So we got to be careful, and we got to be cautious. We got to keep our eyes on all the things. and all the things that play, including the time. So even though I want to bring you a message and I want to bring you a beautiful message from the heart regarding the devil and all its aspects and the devil's card and all the way that it can be misunderstood and understood and replicated and brought back, and the love and the holiday and the Valentine's Day and don't let it do this, I also cannot be tempted to do good because I've got other things I got to do too. I love you. I love you. I love you. If nobody told you they loved you today, somebody just did. The sometimes devilish CW Chanter. I've got other things I have to discuss with you. This video had to be about this. I've got other things I got to talk about with you too as well. Nothing too heavy. Nothing too heavy. But my hopes and my plans to control my consumer spending and not buy any more RPG books. Oh, I acted out. I can't go into it now because, like I said, I can't. I gotta go, but we'll go into it sometime. I'm not, it's nothing terrible, but just things we're talking about. I love you, I love you, I love you, but I gotta go. Okay, happy Valentine's Day to all. And to the elephant in the room, I love you. No sickos. Always bear in mind, hey, it's Valentine's Day, but that doesn't mean there's any exceptions to the forbidden 4, 5, 6. Let's go with 7. Nobody touch anybody. Say hello, Bragg Magic and Jay Roach and Frey, everybody.